Welcome, everybody. My name is Jill Jonathan. I'm with Red, Wine, and Blue. We're a community of women who use digital media and friend-to-friend organizing to change the world one suburb at a time. And of course, I'm here with my co-host, Jo, as in JoJo from Jers. And today we were talking with an incredible author. We love to highlight authors who have books that we think you really enjoy and learn from. So today we have Mary Fashik, and she has her children's book. It's the first of a series of the Adventurous Adeline. And Mary, we are so excited to have you join us. Welcome, and let's just get started. So my first question for you, Mary, is why did you feel the need that this book needed to be written?
I always get asked this question. I'm like, every time I give a different answer to this question, right? Because there are so many different reasons why this book is so important. But, I think about when I look at children's literature, children's books, and I look at disability in children's books, and it's always that inspirational lens, and it's always like white disabled children. And it's like I don't want my book to be inspirational, and I know that's going to upset some mommies, and no apologies here because I'm not here to inspire you. But I want it to be representation for Black and brown, particularly brown children, because we don't see that brown disabled representation. And I know that if little Mary saw that book at the age of 7 and 8, that I would have just been overjoyed to see someone on a book cover that looked like me.
That is, first of all, thank you for writing the book. Thank you for being here. It's very nice to meet you, fellow Lebanese. I already mentioned that off camera. But that is so important about what you're doing here, is this idea that other children can see themselves when they haven't seen themselves. And it's one crucial piece, but it's also the piece of showing children who can't relate specifically, showing them, introducing them to this idea that children like you are out there, children like Adeline are out there. So they see themselves and then they see others as well. It's so important.
It is, and also not just disabled children, right? Non-disabled children, because the education starts very, very young. I actually went out to speak to a gentleman who lived in my complex on Friday, and he was out there with his grandchildren, and his grandson could not have been more than 3 or 4 years old. I don't know if he had ever seen a wheelchair user before, but he came up to me and he just hugged me. And I'm like, he just got exposed to not only disability, but disability in adults, because sometimes children may know disability as their older relative, right? Someone older who's a wheelchair user. They don't see anything in between childhood and someone who's older, right? So someone my age, it's weird to them because they'll look at me and they'll be like, but what's wrong with you? Because they don't truly understand disability, and that disability ranges in ages, and it's all, but disability is dynamic and all that stuff. So this book is so important, not only for disabled children to have representation, but also for non-disabled children and their parents to understand that this is something your child needs to know about. And it's okay to say disabled. Disabled is not a dirty word. It is not a bad word. I am proudly disabled.
I love that. And Mary, what are you hoping that this character of yours, Adeline, that people take away from when they learn about her?
So this is tricky, right? Because like I want them to understand that yes, Adeline is like a children, but at the same time, this is nuance. She's not like other children. Her disability does define her.
Mhm.
Just like my disability defines me. My cerebral palsy defines how I show up in this room, how I show up on social media, how I show up in the world. My impaired speech has people judging me before they even know me. So my disability defines me. Adeline's disability defines her. But Adeline is wanting to navigate a world that was not built for her. But she's trying to change that, right? Like she wants to change that. And I also wanted to change that, and I still do, but in a different way, right? I do from the adult lens. She does from a child's lens of disability. And there's a passage in the book where it says many people thought that her wheelchair hindered her, but that she learned from an early age that her wheelchair was an extension of her body, and her wheelchair gave her the independence that she wanted. And that was me. I did not get a motorized wheelchair until I was in 7th grade. But when I did, it gave me so much freedom and so much more independence because I only have one dominant side. We all have one dominant side, but my left dominant side is a lot weaker. And I was not able to push a push chair, but yet I was in a push chair for 3 years, and I had to depend on other people. But once I got that motorized chair, I gained my independence and my freedom. And that's the thing. Adeline realizes her care is her independence. Her care is important. But while her care is her independence, the world is not necessarily made for her care.
Your Adeline's independence and your independence seem like they're one and the same, right? So you definitely are leaning into that independence by using your voice to advocate for making the world work better for people like you, people like Adeline. I'm so curious, like what part of little Mary or young Mary was said to yourself, I want to use my voice. I want to use my independence, and I want to change the world so that it fits what my reality a little bit better.
So, the really cool thing about this book is that I got to put my lived experience in the book, right? So I always say I'm old. So I'm 47 years old. Yeah, I know, but I have to tell you. But I'm 47 years old. And like in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, I was in middle school. And at the time, there was this national program called Invent America. And what it was this program, this idea that children middle school age would create projects, like science projects, that would solve a problem in the world, right? So for my physical science class, we did Invent America. I invented the Go Anywhere wheelchair. And this wheelchair would climb steps. Now, why do you go anywhere wheelchair? Because I went to a magnet school. This is how old I am. Our magnet school was applied technology, which was cutting edge at the time. Applied technology meaning computers, Like, it was like cutting edge that you had a magnet school dedicated to computer science. That was like unheard of at the time. I was the only physically disabled student in the entire school. There was no elevator in the school. They had to bring all of my classes downstairs. So for my project, I created the Go Anywhere wheelchair. So what did I do? I put the Go Anywhere wheelchair in my book. So Adeline wants to create the Go Anywhere wheelchair, and she dreams about winning an award for creating this wheelchair.
So, Mary, you said that this is the first installment of this series. So, what kind of plans do you have for, more to the series, the story as you build it?
So we have 2 more books after this, and I'm so excited. Now, the second book, Adeline's gonna go to space camp. And not just space camp, but space camp for disabled children. Now, I know everyone's saying, but you're trying to make this, that she fits in with non-disabled children. Yes, but part of this whole journey, and part of my journey as well, is Adeline has not dealt with a lot of other disabled children in her lifetime. She's been around a lot of non-disabled children. So now she's going to a space camp where there are disabled children with limb loss, that are low vision or blind, that are hard of hearing or deaf, and she's going to this camp, and now she's not, in her mind, unique anymore, right? Because she's not the only one there. Now there's other kids, but she has to deal with processing her own identity because she never had a problem identifying the way she did, but now she's around other disabled children. And it's her navigating, like, oh, okay, now I'm with other disabled kids. And not only that, her space camp is like a utopia. Everything is accessible. Everything is accessible. So here she is wondering why, if they're able to do this in space camp, why is the world not this way? So she's grappling with all of these things about, like, okay, I'm at space camp, okay, I'm not the only disabled kid, but wait, there's a picnic table here that my wheelchair, there's a cutout for my wheelchair I can roll up right to the picnic table. I'm never able to do this. Why am I able to do this here? Like, all of these things. So I think it's a great thing about identity and discovery and self-discovery. And I think non-disabled kids will learn from that too, right? Because it's, people want to put you in a box, even from an early age, and we don't fit in nice, neat little boxes. So it's about self-discovery. The third book I can't give away yet, but I can tell you about the second book.
Yeah, thank you. And I feel like this series is kind of like a vision of what the world could be. So I kind of want to talk about like what the world is right now. And I know you talk a lot about the intersection of disability and social justice. So I'm just curious of like, can you speak more to that?
We could be here all day.
Give me your like elevator speech about
Yeah, absolutely. There is a huge gap between disability justice and social justice, and there should not be one, right? Because here is my quote: if you're gonna take away anything from this interview, take away this quote. Disability intersects at every identity, And until society honors our entire identity, we will not achieve collective liberation. Let me say that again. Disability intersects at every identity, and until society and the government honor our entire identity, we will not achieve collective liberation. So if our goal is collective liberation, why are we not, as disabled individuals, included in social justice movements? Why is it when we talk about reproductive rights, when we talk about LGBTQIA plus rights, when we talk about all of these rights, when we talk about Black Lives Matter, we don't say Black Disabled Lives Matter? Why are we not including the disabled community when we are really part of every other community? We're a part of it, and yet when we talk about social justice, particularly when we talk about reproductive rights, and now that we're in an election year, where I am not talking partisan politics, what I'm talking about is access to voting, right? There are barriers just getting to a polling station, getting inside a polling station. And when we're talking about access to voting, we're not talking about the physical barriers. And also when we talk about the climate crisis, I just went through Hurricane Helene. I have been through several hurricanes. Evacuating is not an option for many disabled people. We are left behind to die. And that is the fact. We are left behind to die. I evacuated to a shelter that was not accessible for, I believe it was for Matthew. I slept on the floor, on an air mattress on the floor. I have permanent damage in my hip and my knee because the shelter volunteers were not trained on how to help me get up and down off the floor, nor did they listen to me when I tried to instruct them. We are left behind to die in several situations. We need to talk about this. We need to be front and center when we talk about these social issues. And more so when we talk about Black and Brown and Native disabled individuals. There are Native individuals at the beginning of COVID that they lived on their land and they were sent body bags. They were not sent masks or PPEs. When I say we are left behind to die, we are left behind to die. I have not left my apartment in 4.5 years for other than two things: doctor's appointments and to go see my book in the bookstore. Other than that, I have not gone anywhere in 4.5 years because I am extremely immunocompromised and people think that COVID is over.
Mary, I'm trying not to cry. I thank you, because I'm sitting here thinking truthfully, like honestly, and I worked with I was a paraprofessional. I worked with autistic kids, but I don't walk around my day considering what your reality is. You know, we all kind of think in our own little inflated bubbles, like what is oppressing us, what is, you know, being kept from us. Like I'm not there saying democracy is on the line, blah, blah, but I'm not contending with the reality that you face every day that isn't being talked about. Like you just said, like all these other things get all of this attention, and there's plenty of people who are validly struggling across the board, but we're not actively ignoring them as much as you've just pointed out, and the fact that you said it too, the intersectionality of being disabled and every other identity, that this thing is just not being talked about. I want to applaud you because you're actively opening my eyes to something that I think we need to highlight more. But the fact that you're making these conversations happen so that I can now go and explore this more and have conversations with people too and get involved more. Like I know I've talked about voting access. That's just one little tiny piece. You just said you can't really leave the house other than to go to doctor's offices and see your book, and no human being in this country, or I believe this fundamentally, would want that to be your good. So we have to talk about it more. So I applaud you for putting this conversation front and center. Honestly, I'm going to try not to ugly cry, but good for you.
Thank you. It's, I don't want to be applauded because, I'm not trying to be a hero. Like I'm just trying to raise awareness. I'm trying to take spotlight. I have purpose, right? Even as a brown disabled woman, I have privilege over others. So I'm trying to use my privilege to spotlight important issues that don't get talked about. And I face racism every day, ableism every day, but I also know that I have privilege. So it's extremely important that I use my privilege to highlight where we are falling short. And we are falling short in numerous places. And you brought up the voting access. I believe it was 2018. Well, when I first moved to Brunswick in 2005, the next year I believe we had to vote. And my first polling place here in Brunswick was a church. Now here's what people don't understand. Churches do not have to abide by the Americans with Disabilities Act, because they are private, they are religious organizations. They do not have to abide by the Americans with Disabilities Act, meaning that they don't have to be accessible. So my very first polling place in Brunswick, Georgia was a church. I had to go around the building on a sidewalk that barely fit my motorized chair. If I moved 1 inch the wrong way, I was going to be off the sidewalk. And then I had to go in the back. Now imagine you're telling a brown disabled woman to go in the back door to vote.
Mary, I feel like you sharing these stories. I mean, I was going to ask, like, what would you want people to know? And I think you're like telling us, like, just like what your everyday life is like that people just don't understand. But what's something that you wish people would do? Would take, like, it's one thing to understand or to learn more, but then the next thing is to take some action. So what are some actions that you think we could take?
So I am not palatable, so again, no apologies because this is who I am. I want people to not only follow the white, palatable, what you consider inspirational, disabled influencers, because that's what they are. They're influencers. I want you to follow Black and brown and Native disabled activists, advocates and activists. There is nothing wrong with being an influencer if that's who you are. I mean, kudos. I can't do it. Wish I could. I can't. So there's nothing wrong with influencers. But I need people to diversify their feed. And you also need to follow not only the popular advocates, you need to follow the ones that are doing the grassroots work. I don't have 10,000 followers, and that costs me opportunities because I don't have tens of thousands of followers. Now, I'm not saying I want tens of thousands of followers. What I'm saying is there are those of us doing this work day in and day out, speaking out about things that don't get the public eye because we don't have a ton of followers or we're not palatable. We don't appease the quote unquote special needs mommies, which please don't use that term. Say disabled, it's okay. Like that's the one thing I want people to understand is that you will not understand fundamentally what it's like to be disabled. You never will, but you will be disabled at some point. So before it's too late and you're one of us, you probably should be an ally because it'll make your entry into our community a lot easier. And also, do your research. Look up voting rights, voting barriers. You probably won't find a lot of things, right? Like, look toward the grassroots advocates and activists who are doing the work.
Mary, what, if you have any place you can direct us to, but like when you were talking about the hurricanes, I think you talked about Matthew, I mean, my heart broke for what you had to go through and the pain of all of that and just the indignity of it. We need to do better, obviously. Right now, we are facing a lot of crises. Right now, Milton is bearing down on Florida. Nobody is talking about what you said. Nobody is talking about the disabled community being left behind to die. Nobody is talking about there not being plans to evacuate.
The disabled community is talking about it.
That's what I mean. So where would you, I don't mean nobody. I mean nobody in the, outside of that world, which is what we need to break through, right? That's where we need to make that world meet this one. So how do we get more attention focused on all of this? But right now in these moments for people who are right now out there, like, I don't have an option. I can't evacuate that. How can we help? Where can we go? Where can we highlight and amplify this sort of conversation?
It's hard, right? It's like you're asking me for like a needle in a haystack. But I will say one organization that I have worked with, and if you want to help, they are currently, this is a disabled-led, disabled-run organization that was doing one-time payments for disabled victims of heroin and without, and they got so many requests for these emergency funds that they need more funds. They need more donations. It's New Disabled South. I've worked with them off and on. They're a great organization. They're the ones I can think of. And also Disability Rights Florida, Disability Rights New York, Disability Rights North Carolina, any of those organizations, reach out to them and say, what can we do to help? And New Disabled South is in need of donations. And they need donations urgently. And also Disability Rights North Carolina, it's Disability Rights NC on Instagram. Reach out to them. How can we help you? We know that there are many people in North Carolina who are disabled who cannot get out. And in Florida as well, they can't get out. And when we had a storm the other year, we could not evacuate. I was here, and it's scary to be in a place where you can't get out and you don't know what's going to happen. And this happens every hurricane season, every single one. And it's not just hurricanes, it's the fires in California too. It's the climate. climate crisis is a disability justice issue.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna hold on to that. Um, I mean, thank you for bringing this awareness. I'm like, in just this 30 minutes, I feel like I've learned so much. And just to wrap it up, I want to bring it back to Adeline. And I'm just curious, like, when you were Adeline's age, would you ever imagine that you would have written a book? Is that something that you saw you doing in the future?
So I was actually talking to my best friend about this last night. I grew up when I was about 5 years old. Fame was on TV, and like you don't understand how even that young I was obsessed with Fame, and like I have a little theater bug in me that I never got to explore. I actually made 2 short amateur films now because I just want to act. Like I always wanted to be famous, so yes, I don't know about writing a book, but I always, you know, in the lyrics where it says remember my name, right? Like I want people to remember my name. I always wanted that. That was always a goal, but my main goal and what I told my adoptive mother was that my objective for being here on this earth was to speak for other people who could not speak for themselves.
Mm.
At 8 years old, I said that. So I always knew, even if I didn't know it was a book, I always knew that this was something I was gonna do, and I love Adeline, and she's amazing. She's everything I wasn't, everything I wanted to be, and I want little brown disabled kids to be like, I can do that. I want to do that. And what we want to do with this book is this is a great teaching tool. There's a glossary in the back of the book that has definitions for certain terms. And what we want with this book is that we want it in every classroom possible. Because this is a great teaching tool. We want it in every home, every classroom, every local library. So if you order a copy, please order a couple more. Donate it to your child's school. Donate it to your local library. And I am working on a lesson plan guide for teachers that will be available on my website, adventurousadeline.com, soon in the next couple months. So, yeah, I want this to be, this is a stepping stone, if you will. I maybe it's a bad choice of words, right? But this is the beginning of something that I think will be a wonderful thing for many parents and students and teachers.
And it is how they're going to know your name, Mary. Like I don't know how I'm 3 years older than you, and I was not allowed to stay up and watch Fame. I used to sneak around the corner of the stairs when my older siblings were watching it, and I was like, remember. But yeah, I mean, then I watched the reruns when I was older. But I'm laughing inside because I also love that show. But you're leaving your mark on the world. Maybe it's not through theater or dance or singing or drama. It's this book. It is this activism. It is this advocacy. It is your spirit and your soul and your fire and your passion and your confidence and your intelligence and your ability to articulate this stuff and to make other people think beyond the scope of what we always are sort of trained to think about. So that's how they're going to remember your name. And so you are going to be famous if you're not already. We're going to get you in all the schools, but maybe not. I don't know about Fame in the show, but otherwise, thank you for all of this. It's really, I know you don't want to be an inspiration. I know you say that, it's just inherent in what you're doing. So I apologize, but that's kind of how I see it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much. And as we were talking, I'm already like, I'm going to order them to give them to the school libraries.
Yeah, I'm thinking the
So
same thing.
exactly what you're saying. I'm like, yes, that's what we need to do. We need to get this information out for sure. So yeah,
Believe it or not, this book has not broken the top 100 list of books on about children with disabilities on Amazon. It's so yeah, we want to make sure we get it in as many hands as possible.
yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for coming to talk to us. This has been really great. And, you know, we're here, your friend of Red, Wine, and Blue. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This will save on our YouTube channel, so be sure to share it with your friends. And then Red, Wine, and Blue, check us out at redwine.blue. We are a community of women, like I said, and we will help you find your people because you are not alone. Trust us. So thank you, Mary. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everybody. Have a good afternoon.